What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another video. I am the Hobbyist, and today I wanted to do a quick video comparing the differences between a straight solid axle and a portal solid axle. There's a lot of confusion I've seen between like what's the difference and also what are the pros and cons of each. Some people are just saying do portals no matter what. Some people are saying do straights no matter what. And I think that there's a good place in our RC crawling for both of them. So I have the Axial SCX 10.2 Unimog that has the AR44 straight solid axles, and then I have the Axial SCX 10.3 with the AR45 portal solid axles. So I'm going to get into the physical differences first, and then I'm going to get into the pros and cons of each type of axle. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So starting with the physical differences of the portal axle versus the straight axle. The straight axle obviously is straight, so the center line of the wheel is lined up with the center line of the axle. Straight axles are a bit less mechanically complicated, which is a pro, but you can see that ground clearance, all the ground clearance you get is basically how much diameter your wheels are. This is running 4.3 inch wheels, I believe, so it's, you get a little bit of ground clearance, but it's not a whole lot. Now compare that to a portal axle. The portal axle, the center line of the axle is raised above the center line of the wheel. So here's the center line of the wheel, and you can see that there's a little bit extra room there. And how that works is using a series of gears in the steering knuckle right here, and that basically just moves the center line of the wheel down. And as a bonus, you also get more gear reduction here, depending on the type of portals you're using. If you're using TRX4 or axial portals, then you do get gear reduction. If you use cheaper portals, then you might not get any. But one of the major benefits of that is the fact that you get a little bit more ground clearance out of it. As you can see, now mind you, this is running a little bit of a shorter tire, so keep that in mind. But there is still a considerably amount more of ground clearance than there is on this truck here. So now that we've seen the physical differences, let's get into some of the pros and cons of each axle. Let's start with the pros of the portal axle. So for the time being, we're going to move the straight axle out of the way. So if you look at the portal axle, some of the pros include obviously the higher ground clearance, which is a massive advantage, especially with smaller tires. You want to get that extra ground clearance. So if you're running a 1.9 rig like this is a 1.9 trail truck, then it may be a massive benefit to look into the portal axles. But with that, there is a bit of a con. In this area right here, you can see this whole C-hub assembly and all that. All of this hanging down and all that. That's a pretty big weak point compared to the straight axles. So I've heard of a lot of people breaking these on the axial and TRX4 axles. I haven't yet, but I am aware that that is something that people have been known to break, and that's just something to keep aware of. So if you're kind of hard on your RCs, that it might not be the best option. And then another thing is that with this raised axle, it also raises your center of gravity a little bit. And unless you're climbing, that's really not as much of a concern. But if you're like trying to compete, then that might be a definite concern if you're looking for the lowest center of gravity possible. Now that we've looked at the portals, let's look at the straight axles. Now the first thing is that it's much more mechanically simpler. So as you can see, it's just a simple C-hub and steering knuckle. There's not a huge amount of C-hub that can break off. It's pretty simple design, and it's very, very durable, and many straight axle crawlers use this design. So it's a very, very beneficial design. And you also get a slightly lower center of gravity because your differential is a little bit lower, and all of that weight is just a little bit lower down, which is also a pretty big benefit. But the con really is that ground clearance. If ground clearance is a really big concern for you, then straight axles might not be the best for some scenarios, because you just see there is so little compared to what the portals have. That being said, one solution if you want to keep your straight axles is to put on bigger tires. Here is my Force RC Hammerjaw rock crawler, and move this over. As you can see, it also has straight axles. It's got AR60 axles, which are much beefier, but the benefit of it has bigger tires. So I do get quite a bit of ground clearance. Obviously where the pumpkin is, it really, especially with the skid plate, you lose a lot of ground clearance. But that's kind of the truth with anything. You kind of just have to steer your pumpkin around things as best you can. So I'm just looking at the axle itself, and you can see it's pretty raised up and is a straight axle, and I get the benefits of the simplicity of the steering system and also the lowered center of gravity, because this is designed to be a good climber. So that's one of the solutions you can possibly do if you want to combat the ground clearance issue with straight axle. Another example here is a Element RC Enduro Gatekeeper. It also has straight axles. These are the Element versions, not the axial ones. But as you can see, still a very simple design, very compact, and it's got about the same size tires, a little bit taller, but you get a little bit extra ground clearance out of that. So it's definitely helpful. So if you want to stick with 1.9 and not want to get giant 2.2s like the Hammerjaw did, then this might be something to look into as well. And it's definitely going to be worth deciding all your options before you decide on what axle you want. So you want to see what your crawler is going to be doing the most. If it's going over a lot of river rocks and tall terrain, then you're probably going to want portals for the higher ground clearance. But if you're going to be climbing, mountains, if you want to go trailing on your local walking trail, and if that's up like a hill or something, then you might want something that can climb a little bit better. Alright guys, so those are the differences and the pros and cons between portal axles and straight axles. As for which one is better, neither of them are better. You can totally depends on what you're trying to do with your RC crawler. So it's a main focus on just what you need it to do. If you want to clear a lot of tall obstacles, then portal axles might be better. If you want climbing ability and much more durable reliability, as it is in some cases, then straight axles might be your way to go, especially if you're running taller tires like on my comp rig that I showed you. So overall, it's really up to you, but hopefully this video has been helpful in helping you determine what axle is best for you. Anyway guys, that's going to do it. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment in the section below for what videos you'd like to see next. But that's all for today, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.